Hello, hello. This
Hi.
is our last episode of this 2002 Expert Talk series. It's honestly a bit shocking for me to say because I felt like it was such a nice, wonderful, not even like a long journey, but it was a very nice experience to be able to have so much diverse opinions. And this being our last episode, our sixth episode, it just reminds me of how long we have come for this project series. In any way, for those who may not know what this project series is about, it's on the topic of third culture kids, and specifically the title is Thriving Thursdays: Third Culture Kids Beyond and Between Borders, where we explore the dynamics of the third culture kids, aspects of their identity and career beyond and between mental and physical borders. And today we have another special guest, and her name is Emira Chaieb, and I'm just gonna give a brief introduction of her background, what she's doing, so you all get to know her a little bit. So she is 25 years old, and she's currently studying law at the University of Vienna. She was born and raised in Vienna, Austria, but is originally from Tunisia, North Africa. And due to her diverse upbringing, Amira speaks Arabic, English, German, and French. And in the close future, she aspires to specialize in international law. So, a very warm welcome, Amira. Thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
here.
Thank
And
you for
I'm
having
very
me.
excited to listen to kind of your experience and kind of your development in a very multicultural
Yeah.
setting. Right. Before I kind of go into the topic, do you want to add anything else to introduce yourself?
Oh no, thank you. You did a well. You did a good job.
Okay, perfect. So, as everybody probably knows, this topic that we're going into is about third culture kids. And for those who may not know what the third culture kid is, a third culture kid is someone who grew up in a country that's different than the passport country, right? That's a definition. And so, my next question to Amira is, can you kind of explain to us your third culture kid experience? So, I already introduced kind of your background in, growing up in Vienna, but you're from Tunisia, North Africa. How was kind of your experience as a TCK? And what does it actually mean for you to be a TCK?
So first of all, I want to say this topic really inspires me a lot and just um, is very interesting. And I think many people who are third culture kids who are not even like third culture kids um, can get very inspired by this topic and maybe can relate to some stuff. So, like born and raised here in Vienna, when I was a child, I didn't really like recognize that I was different or that I'm a third culture kid. I knew that my mom and dad that we speak Arabic. They were not born here. I know that, but growing up in kindergarten or in in primary school, there was not much of a difference for me from the other children. You know what I mean? Who don't
Mm-hmm.
have this cultural upbringing, who don't have a cultural background, and I never really saw the difference until I came into a middle school, until I was 11, 12 years old. And then I switched schools because I grew up in the 19th district of Vienna, and the 19th district in Vienna is known, like everyone who is from Vienna knows, like the 19th district is dominantly more white. I would say, like, people who live here and work here in this district don't have a cultural, no, not many of them have a cultural background, and they come from very privileged homes, I would say. So when I changed a school when I was like 11 or 12 years old, and I went to another school in the 20th district of Vienna. And the 20th district is a whole completely different district than the 19th district, even though we are neighbors. You see people from different cultures. They're like more from Turkish, Arabic, and Chechen backgrounds. So the school there was a little bit, it was different for me. So when I changed school, I just realized, wait a minute, like, this is such a different environment that I'm in. It's such a different vibe, and the people are different. And in my school we also had many children who are refugees, who came as refugees to Austria. So this was also very different for me. than my
Mm,
previous schools. So I think these were like the first times where I was like, there is actually a difference in upbringing, in language, in culture, in you know, like how your parents are. And you know, sometimes you go with your parents to speak with the teacher, and then you have to translate for your parents most of the time, even though my parents are living very long, like since a very long time here in Austria. Like my father is here since for 40 years, I guess, or like, and my mother is lives here since 30 years, and they speak German very good, I would say, but still not. It's not their mother tongue, you know. Like I still have to translate some things for them,
mm,
so it's a little bit different, of course.
mm. Well, you touched on a lot of points there, Amira. Thank you so much for going into different aspects of your experience.
Yes.
My kind of question is, so you kind of mentioned that for you it wasn't very different to grow up as a TCK when you were young, right? You didn't really see the difference. It wasn't something obvious,
Yes.
but you did mention to me that after when you became more of an adult and you entered more of this, let's say around your early 20s, that's when you kind of saw the difference of going up as a TCK, as a third culture kid. Can you please describe to me this transition? And if you could say at what point did you kind of feel this shift of your experience being different from when you were small versus when you were an adult, basically?
Well, when I was, you know, when I was small, I think my parents also had, you know, like many friends who are from different backgrounds. So, you know, I grew up with people who are Asian, or who have a completely different background than me. And you know, they don't speak Arabic or they don't speak German at all. So I had very like different friendships. But when I got into, like, when I finished high school, when I got into university, and I also met so many people from different cultures, of course. But I also like saw the difference between my family and their families, and I just like realized that these differences are actually very important, or just like it's interesting to see like how some people think on certain things, and versus my family, how I was raised. And I feel like many things um many things in my life are actually because of how, like, many stuff and many things in my life happened for a reason, because of the way I was raised, because I was a third third culture kid, I guess. And some other
Mm,
people don't have like the same experiences that I have, if it makes sense.
right.
Like
Can you please go into when you mentioned that you saw that your family had different values compared to others? Can you give examples of what you noticed?
like my family had, you know, like I grew up in a very like religious household, I would say. Not much of a cultural household. I mean, of course we have like a little bit of, yeah, we have, of course we have like Tunisian North African culture in our household, but I mainly grew up more religious. So Islam was a big topic in my family. So my family always saw like the Islamic values are very important. And for example, I was never allowed to have a boyfriend when I was a teenager, for example, or just you know, drinking alcohol, or just like, you know, going to parties when I was a teenager, or you know, those kind of things. And my parents have certain values. So then when I met people who don't share the same values, like how, like me, it was a little bit hard for me to bond with them when I was a little bit younger, like in my high school years, I would say, because I could not understand how their families would allow them those things, and my family was a little bit more strict. You
Mm,
know what I'm saying? And
mm,
then when I met people who actually grew up in a similar environment like me, and whose parents also shared similar values, like my parents, it was easier to bond and to connect, of course. But yeah, this is what I thought when I was a little bit younger, in my, in my teenage high school years. I thought like, oh my god, like people who we can be best friends just because our parents are alike, or just because we share the same culture or the same religion or the same mother tongue. But just a couple of years ago, when I was in university and I met the most random people, like many people from different backgrounds, I just realized, even though like our backgrounds may not be the same, and our parents' values or family's values are not the same, yeah, we can still connect and we can still be best friends, and we can still vibe with each other, no matter no matter how, like, how different our upbringings were. You know what I'm saying? So um yeah, I mean, I'm honest, my parents' values actually really, um like, they somehow, like, they affected me in a certain way growing up, because I was always like, oh, those people, for example, when I met people who share the same religion as me, or who share the same culture as me, and I was like seeing them doing the opposite what my parents would preach, I was like confused, and like I had somehow of an identity crisis, because I
Mm,
didn't know where I would belong, or what should I do. Should I follow like my parents' advice? Should I follow like my parents' cultural thinking? I don't know. Like, then
right.
I just realized, at the end of the day, I am who I am, and I should follow what I think is right for me.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like, yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. And Svetlana says, interesting example of the Islamic upbringing, insights into family values. Thank you for sharing the story.
You're welcome.
So it's from the comment section. So, Amira, you mentioned kind of the challenges and conflicts that you experienced growing up in your family and Islamic upbringing and having this religion, but then having the clash of the people around you who did not have the same belief, right? So you
Yeah.
had this conflict of religion in essence. Were there any other specific challenges that you kind of had and that you allocated to your very multicultural TCK experience and upbringing?
Um, mm, Not really. Like, in terms of like language, many people would say, "Oh, third culture kid, they always spoke their mother tongue at home." In my family, in my home, we speak bilingual. So we speak Arabic and German, which is great, because my parents made sure that we speak German very well from a very young age, because obviously we live here, we go to school here, we're gonna get a German education, but we also want our children to speak their mother tongue. And because Arabic is like very important for my parents and for me as well, because it's also like the language of our religion, and we pray in Arabic, we do everything in Arabic. So it was also very important for my parents to speak Arabic, that we speak Arabic. And I'm so happy that my parents actually made sure that me and my siblings go to weekend Arabic school after a whole week of German school. So that was nice when I was a little girl, but right now I'm happy that I'm multilingual. It's just perfect. But you know what I want to say with the story with the languages is that many people actually who grew up in a third culture, grew up as a third culture kid, they only got to speak their mother tongue at home. And I just saw that by so many people, like so many people that I know, and I feel like it's a little bit of a mistake by the parents, because you obviously need to learn the language of the country you live in, no matter if you want it or not. And I criticize that a little bit, because I personally know many people who actually got to learn German all by themselves, not at home or by the parents.
Right.
And
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting aspect. And I also kind of I understand when you mentioned that you had to go to weekend schools because from my multicultural upbringing, I was also, in essence, when I look back on it, I was forced to attend Chinese weekend school, and I really did not enjoy it back then. But afterwards, looking back now, as like you, I'm super thankful that I had that, learning of the Chinese culture. I understood the language, was able to learn characters. So I think looking beyond the challenges, there were a lot of benefits that we
yeah.
kind of experienced as a TCK. All right, and just another question, which is you kind of mentioned the challenges of religion, and you mentioned that you kind of overcame this by just embodying who you are, just being focused that, hey, this is me and I enjoy this aspect. What would you say for the other TCKs out there who may be still struggling with this conflict in religion, in identity, and what their peers are believing versus at home? What kind of like tool or what kind of solutions would you perhaps suggest them?
So, in my opinion, I would suggest to find people. I know it's hard, but to find people who are on the same wavelength as you. So it's easier for you to bond and like to connect and to even like do stuff together, because when you have friends who have completely different parents, or just like who are different up, like a very total different upbringing, sometimes it can be very hard, especially when you're in a younger age, when you are just like still in your teens or in your high school years. It can be very hard to always like um like do stuff with them, or just like hang out with them, like do basic stuff with them. I'm serious, like I just saw that in my, I don't know how it is when it comes to other people, but I'm just like telling from my personal view, from my personal experience, and from my circle, that it was easier for people to connect and to bond and to do stuff and to hang out with people who are on the same wavelength as them, because you don't have to like compare yourself and just like being depressed of some stuff that you are not allowed to do, or it was easier for, this is like the only solution I would say, because it was easier for me to be like, to live my life like that, just to find people who I can, who can understand me more, like
Right.
yeah, it was easier for me that way. So I know it's hard, it's easier said than done, of course. But other solution would be like um gaining a stronger personality, being more confident in yourself and in your culture and your religion, and just standing up for who you are and saying, look, this is, I'm not ashamed of who I am, I'm not ashamed of my culture, I'm not ashamed of my religion, or of my parents who don't speak the language very well. I don't know, whatever it is, just like create your own little world. I would say. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I understand completely what you mean. And I think it's really an important point because as third culture kids, we're often faced with different inputs, different stimulus from all around, right? Whether it be just friends,
Yeah.
family, culture. There's a lot of things that we deal with, and the fact that we should just embody what we feel like can bring us to a better state and disregarding the naysayers, the people who are bringing us down because of our identity. I think that's a really important aspect, and thank you for highlighting that. My next question goes into career, right? So in this project series, we focus on not only discussing the third culture kid development experience, but as well as how that has impacted, let's say, your career trajectory and how you kind of see that in the future. So my question is, how do you think being a TCK has so far affected your decisions on what you want to do, what you want to be? And would you say that it was a big impact? and which aspects of your identity kind of influenced your career choice?
Yes, so I would say that I chose to study law in Vienna. Many people actually told me like, "Oh, what are you doing like with law? Now there's like a new law that is coming. People who would wear the hijab, like the headscarf, are not allowed to become a lawyer or a judge or something." And I'm a Muslim. Maybe I will wear one day like the headscarf. So that would be that would be not a good choice for me, of course. But I know so many like Muslim women who actually study law and who are very good in their job, and who practice legal work and who are very successful. So of course it is a little bit like hard to say like what is the best career path, which career path should I take, which path should I be following, just because I'm a third culture kid. But I would say um don't limit your career choices just because you are a third culture kid. And because I saw that like in my circle, in my from people that I know, like from family members, from friends, who told me like, yes, this like this bachelor in university are only taken by people who have Austrian parents or something. And I was just like, why should we put like um some university courses in a box and say, oh, this is just like for this specific group of people? If you want to do it, just go for it. Why
Mm,
should you limit yourself? You get me? Like it's the
yeah,
same. It's the same like the high schools or the schools in general in Vienna. When people who grew up in Vienna, who are born and raised here, just like me, will know that there are some specific schools here in Vienna are considered as the, I would say it in German right now, Sozialbrennpunktschule. That means the schools who don't have who are so who have many people with like low social status and with people whose parents have low income, and whose parents are who have cultural background. Excuse me for my English is not my
it's
first or
all
second.
good. I understand you perfectly. Yeah,
Yes, sorry. um
we have a
yeah.
comment actually.
No, and I
Mhm.
feel like I hate the cliche in Vienna that goes, like that goes in our community. Like everyone is saying here, yes, this school has these people. These people are not great. They're not educated. Their parents are not educated. And I would say, like, why would you put so many people from one place in a box and say, oh, they're not educated. Their parents are not educated. They will
Mm,
never get a bachelor. They will never get a master. And then they are shocked when they study medicine or they study law and they really get successful. And I'm just like very against those like cliches. And I hope like these cliches
mm,
will get away with the next generation or with our generation soon, because I don't
yeah,
like hearing about that, like this just
of
makes me
course.
very mad actually, because yeah.
Yeah. I love your point on the idea of breaking the boundaries of what is possible. We should never be constricted on what other people think that we should or should behave, should be, what we will do in the future. Only, you're only limited by yourself and your own beliefs and thoughts.
Yes,
And we actually have a comment by Etne that says, avoiding limiting beliefs, it's great. And she also has a question.
I know.
Uh,
I just
yes.
read it. I just read it.
Mm,
Of course, I agree with her. I know, and that's also my opinion. Thank you for sharing your point of view, Aitne Knapic. Sorry. Um, yes, I agree with you. I have the same opinion, obviously, but I feel like still like when I look at my inner circle, like my best friends, to be honest, I just feel like I just like realize we have the same upbringing. not like necessarily the same, but like similar upbringing. And I just feel like we bonded and just like, we relate on like we just relate to each other so much. I just relate to my best friends who have similar upbringings just like me more than my other friends. And of course I have friends from completely different backgrounds, and I appreciate that, so I can learn and appreciate new cultures and have new insights on different people, and I feel like that's amazing. That's just my
Mm,
opinion though.
right. I think you're also referring back to what you said in the beginning, which was surrounding yourself with people who lift you up.
Yeah.
So people who actually encourage you, be in that circle, be in that mindset, because there will always, always be people who says you can't do this, you can't do that because you're like this, right? There will always be people who label you. So I think, going back to what you mentioned is being around people who believe in you and who lift you up rather than put a label on what you can or can't do, which is really
Yeah.
important. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And following on that, my next question is, well, I want to go back to what you mentioned, which is kind of your trajectory of wanting to be a lawyer. Was there a specific aspect besides what you mentioned already that made you particularly want to pursue this trajectory?
Oh, I mean, like like many people actually told me, yes, what do you want to do with law? Like, you should not be a lawyer, you should not be a judge. Um, you know, because people actually see people who come from my background, from my from my country, or just like from my culture, from my culture, as becoming a typical housewife. So they don't see us in positions of becoming a successful independent woman. And so I really am the person who wants to break the stigma and break like the cultural rules, because I feel like every woman depend like it doesn't matter which religion you have or from which country or just like cultural background you have. Every human being, not just like any woman, every human being has a right to be independent and successful. And this is
Mm,
what many people actually forget. So many people actually told me, oh, you're not becoming a lawyer, you're not becoming a judge, you're not why are you studying law, etc., etc. And I was just like, it's just, this is something that I want. I just chose what I want to study, and this makes me happy. So
yeah, right.
I
And
don't really care what the society has to say, because I feel like this is also like an you have to train yourself to not think like what everyone else is thinking, and to
mm,
have your own mind and to have your own perspective. I feel like that's very, very important.
right. I agree 100%. And for you, for example, you clearly want to pursue this direction of law, for example, and you're quite clear that you want to do this in the future. But oftentimes, for many TCKs, we see this pattern of them being very unsure about where they want to go, what they can do, and just very much undervaluing the capabilities and competencies that they
Yeah.
have from their experience.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this? And what are your kind of inputs on what could be
To be
done?
Yes, to be honest, thank you for asking this question, because I was just like actually thinking about it. I feel like this is way deeper actually, because I also know so many people, including myself and my brother and my sister, who went to an Austrian primary school, who had a German education here. Um, like how many teachers actually told us, oh, you should not do this. You are not going to become this and that. You're not going to finish high school. You are not going to have the matura and stuff like that. And I feel like when you say something like this to a young child at a very young age as a teacher, you don't know what you're doing to this child. You're really limiting their 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 career choices. You are limiting their confidence. You're literally destroying those children from a very young age. Just you don't let those kids believe in themselves. And I feel like this is like a failure from the teaching system here in Austria. And believe me, there are so many TCK friends that I have, or people in general that I know, who went through the same experience in high school or in primary school or whatever. I feel like this is a very like sad story, and I feel like many children actually get triggered by this when someone tells them, "Oh, yeah, you will never achieve. Oh, this is not suitable for you. Just go find a regular job." Like I just hope for the next that this generation of teachers and the next generation of teachers, that they will be better, that they will teach children to believe in themselves no matter what. Yeah, I feel like that's very important.
Thank you so much for sharing and, being vulnerable and letting us know kind of what a third culture kid, what a multicultural person may experience. Having these different cultural backgrounds, having people in your school from this Austrian mindset, and then having your home culture and having these clashes of, what is your future, what skills you have, having that and having to deal with it, that's something that I feel like really plays a huge role
Hmm.
on what we value and how we see ourselves of our capabilities and skills.
Hmm.
So I guess this is a message also for the educators and people who are listening, that every single word really counts that we tell, kids or adults or whatever it is, and that we should not be imposing our own experiences on other people. So
Hmm.
thank you very much for mentioning that.
Welcome.
And the next question I want to ask is actually from our last guest speaker, and her question to you is, what is the biggest challenge for you as a TCK and your career trajectory, and how did you deal with it, the challenges and your career journey thus far? So perhaps what was the most difficult thing when you were trying to understand where you wanted to go, what you wanted to be as a TCK?
Okay. I would say proving people the opposite. Proving people the opposite, I would say, mainly because, as I told you, like growing up, unfortunately, I had people never believing in me. I suffered from like, um, for me, from low self-confidence growing up when I was a child. So I never really thought like I would finish high school, or just studying in university. I always believed in me, yes, but I still had struggles, like I still had insecurities of it, so I think like proving people the opposite, and just like become like more becoming more confident, and strengthen my personality, I would say.
Mm,
um, yes. And when it
right.
comes to my career, I would say I'm I'm still studying, so I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. It's not hard, but I would say like like always believing in yourself. I know we hear this all the time, but getting up and trying your best every day is is really like the best choice, I would say, like the best advice as well. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's true.
Right. I think it's very important. And I think
Yes.
like what you mentioned is just showing up, as who you are and
Yes.
taking the brave next step, regardless of what other people or influences you have, right? So
And
showing up
also,
every single day.
and also just be yourself. Don't try to imitate other people. Just don't try to fit in, I feel like. Just like don't make yourself suitable for them. Let them be suitable for you. And if they're not suitable for you, any career, anything in life, just say no, because you're a human being. You don't deserve to be create yourself a new version, to create a new version of yourself, just to be accepted by other people, or just to be accepted by the majority of the people you work with, or you study with, or where you live. Just be yourself. And if
Mm,
that's not enough, then I'm sorry. I think it couldn't be said any better, to be honest. I just feel like like, especially in my 20s, I struggled a lot right now, like finding myself and just like how to be accepted, I would say. But then I was like, no, I don't want to be accepted, to be honest. I just want to be myself, and the right people will radiate to me, and just like the right work will radiate to me, the right career will radiate to me, and the right circle of friends will radiate to me. And I don't have to create some myself as a new human being, as a new version, just to fit in this specific picture that they want me to be. So I feel like this is very, very important to know from a very young age as well, because I never got to, and no one told me when I was younger, you just have to be yourself. No one told me that. No one told me that. I just had to, I had to, I had to figure it out for myself. And whether you figure it out for, and whether you figure it out for yourself or not. Yes.
This is such a relevant topic, and especially for this TCK topic, because I find personally, let me know if you feel the same way, but I feel like because of our different influences, I always find myself, especially when I was younger, trying to adapt and trying to be flexible to others, because we were always having to do that from a very young age, right? Trying to fit into the Hungarian culture for me, trying to fit into the American culture, trying to fit in the Chinese culture when I go home. I feel like as TCKs, we always are constantly chameleons to the world. And I think it's such a great reminder that we don't need to force ourselves into specific molds, but we can just be molds of ourselves, whatever capacity that means. So I think it's a really important point and kind of comment for all TCKs to be aware of.
Yes.
Yes. We have a comment from Zelina. Tragic how society still discourages the competencies of young people, but showing them the opposite and staying consistent on your vision is truly the most amazing way of proving them wrong.
Your side, okay. You're welcome. Thank you for your comment. Oh, thank you.
That was a very inspirational reflection from your side. Thank you very much. And then Mitra said, thank you for sharing your life experiences so openly and warmly. I think we all felt this today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
And my kind of semi-last question is, this is actually the last episode of this TCK project series, and it's kind of surreal to say that already, because I felt like we're just beginning, to be honest. But I want to ask you a question, Emira, on how important do you think it was for you right now, even, but as well as for others, to have a platform to discuss their views on such a multicultural upbringing, to have a voice and a space to share it? How important was it for you today, for example?
Oh, to be honest, before I got to know you, Mimi, like I never actually like thought about it. Like, to be honest, and I'm like so happy that I got to know you, that we met randomly, to be honest. And that you just like told me about your project and your vision, and I was like, wait a minute, like this really like is suitable for me. Like, I'm a very outspoken person, and I feel like I speak on this topic so much in private, like with my friends and with my family. So I feel like, why not making it more public and sharing it with other people who can relate or not, and even people who cannot relate. It's interesting to hear stories from a different perspective,
Definitely.
So I feel like I'm very happy that I can share my thoughts and my experiences. Maybe it's not the best advice. Maybe I don't have like the best advice, but that's just like my personal opinion. I feel like it's great to have people here who respect each other, and who respect other people's opinion, and just like are very interesting into listening other people's stories. I feel like that's very
that's a really interesting point. Yeah, it's an interesting point you mentioned regarding having just a public space to discuss this, because I think also what you intend to add on and mean is that you never know who listens to this, right? You never know who you might change their ideas and their vision of themselves. And so
Yeah.
every single person watching, that already counts, and that could be a ripple effect to the next listener or viewer.
Yes, and I feel like this topic should be is so somehow like underrated. Like I feel like people in our age or even like younger or even older should participate more in those type of discussions and share their stories, because we always learn from each other, and it's the most beautiful way to connect through these topics, through these stories. So yes.
Thank you so much. That was kind of my last question. But before we close, do you want to share kind of your contact information, how people can reach you and connect with you if they want to?
Yes. Just like on Instagram, I'm mainly on Instagram. I don't use social media that much anymore. Or on Facebook, Facebook and Instagram, I would say, even though like Facebook, I don't use it that much like back in the days. But I would say like Facebook or Instagram is like good.
Amazing. So everybody can see the banner down here for her Instagram link and contact and connect with her. And I just want to say a few words from my end, because this is the last episode of this project series. It's definitely not the last, but at least for this project.
Okay.
And I want to say just thank you to everyone who, is a guest speaker either at this episode, who is listening in as an audience member, who is commenting in the comment section, being active and engaging with us. I think all of you guys contributed to making this an experience. And I also want to say thank you very much for the collaboration that I'm able to have with Sietar Austria, with Raw Culture. I think it's a very valuable partnership, and we see the benefits that it's providing to everyone in our community. And I just also want to say that I've seen through this series the impact that having a third culture kid history and an experience has had on each individual speaker, right? And how it really changes your views, your experience as a whole, and having this space to discuss not only about that, but as well as how you overcame some specific challenges. So thank you everyone so much for contributing and bringing value to this whole project series. All of you had a role, and please feel free to stay in touch with us even after this project series. You can connect with us on Sietar Austria and as well as Raw Culture. I'm just going to briefly pop it up again. So this is Sietar Austria's website. And of course, follow Sietar Austria on the social media channels as well. And then you can check out Raw Culture on this website link and follow us on social media. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And I really appreciate all the comments so far. So thank you.
Thank
Have a
you
good
for
day.
having me.
Of course. Bye-bye.
Bye.